From January 21st, 2004 to January 21st, 2005, a lot happened. A lot of these memories are not in order, but I am going to be sharing them with you. Right before I started this episode, I've realized I've done my first 10 years of my life and I have missed, a few things now looking back at the first two videos. I need to stress that these videos basically a recap of what I can remember and what I see through my eyes and memories that have just been engraved in my head. I remember the first time that we got internet. It was the first time that I felt in my family we had reached a new tax bracket, meaning a new level of success in the sense that we could afford cable and internet, because at this time internet was a thing, but it wasn't as it is today. We started with dial-up internet. I believe it was DSL. Kelly, she actually put me on hip hop. There used to be on MTV. The first time I ever watched MTV was a countdown show on Saturday morning where they used to do like from top 10 to number 1 video of the week. It went from a Maroon 5 video to Ludacris, Move Bitch. Listening to the song, I was like, man, what is this? Even though in 2003, 2004 was when I first got introduced to 50 Cent. And my first ripped CD that I remember our neighbor from the basement in that apartment that we lived, it was her daughter's dad who had burned CDs and a copy for the free 99. And I would play this album from beginning to end. Once we got internet in that whole 2004 going to 2005, music was transitioning in the sense that we weren't seeing as much CDs. And in 2005, my parents, which I think was really my mom, gifted me my first desktop, which was like a 10-inch Dell Tower. This was the first time I had this computer and it was all mine. First thing that I got was FrostWire, because at that time LimeWire was a big thing. But once again, my internet was not the fastest. And I remember where we lived, we didn't get like the best service. I had to settle for FrostWire, which was the same thing. Blows my mind to realize that I saw the transition of like CDs. And the very first thing I got before my first iPod Touch, which I got that Christmas, I believe in 2005. I remember my dad had taken me to the store to get this AM, FM, Sony player. I remember it was between that or a Zoom. Thanks to FrostWire, I got introduced to artists like Tupac, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg. It was like a wormhole. I remember the first time I told my mom, she had thought that the FBI was going to come to our house because, it was a big thing. You were basically taking this music and you were getting it for free. So I started going through thousands and thousands of songs. I got trapped by trying to download a 50 Cent song and this guy came out and it was like, you! The first time I ever heard Soulja Boy, and he had cranked that. And it's crazy because not too long ago I saw an interview of him and he said that the way he put himself on was he would go on these websites and like title his song different artists' names. So when you download the song, it used to take like 5 to 10 minutes to download a few songs. It was just a whole different time. I was 11 at this point. At that time there wasn't no like YouTube tutorials, even though YouTube had just started, but I wasn't on it like that. So now it's the year 2006 and I'm about to go into 6th grade. And one of the memories that I had that stuck out that year was we had all the 6th graders into like our auditorium. They played on like the big projector a movie, and that movie was Al Gore's like climate change. And I remember sitting there and I was like, why are they showing this to us? Just the story and basically the documentary of like, hey, if our generation at that point didn't take care of the world, our kids are gonna suffer, right? I remember walking away from that documentary, not only liking it, that age, it like triggered something in me that even to this day, I'll do my part. Then the middle of 2006 hit. Got a surprise one day after school. When I say we, I mean Brian and I, my nephew. We got home, there was a dog waiting for us. My first memory was my dad couldn't believe it, and when he got home that night, he literally said we needed to find an adoption center because we were not going to be keeping this dog. And 11, 12-year-old me was like, no, we want to keep it. And then my nephew started crying and we like held the dog. We're like, we're going to take care of him, we're going to take him for walks, we're going to pick up after him. And my dad's like, no, I don't want to see this dog. Cut away to now, this dog Shout out to Jerry, still alive. What is that, 14, about to be 14 years old, still kicking and everything. Let's just say from the moment that we got him to now, yo, he is like my dad's best friend, literally. But during my childhood, this was like my dog. Like, I was the one to pick up after him. I would take him outside. I would take him on walks. We would take him on car rides. Like, I learned when people say, oh, you know, a dog's a man's best friend. Like, he truly is. And now that he's getting older, I know that I don't want to say his days nor his months, but I want to say that his years are counted, and it's sad, and I don't want to get into that. Next, I turned 13 years old. At this point, things in my life got interesting because I remember before the school year had ended, I had gotten my first crush. But before I get into that story, a memory just came into my head. I do want to say that I think this was like around 2005, 2006. Me talking to my dad, and I think we had just come back from running errands. I asked my dad, as a kid, I wasn't even a teenager at this point, hey, I had a few questions for you. How good do you know me? And he was like, what do you mean? So I started like running off these questions, like, what's my favorite color? What's my favorite show? What's my favorite artist? What's my favorite this, and that? And like, he knew a few things, but he didn't know a lot. The fact that that memory stuck with me until, now, I wasn't disappointed in my dad. I wasn't sad, but it just like, looking back, I'm like, wow, like literally all kids need is attention. They just simply want to look up to somebody. Keep in mind, like I said in my past videos, like my parents had me at 38. Like that's damn near 40 years of a difference. I'm 25, about to be 26. They're retired. And especially that generation, I don't know, that's just another story within itself. And that's what I'm learning with making these videos. The older I get, the more that I remember. There's so many different stories in my life that I just want to like share. These videos are only getting harder. I get that they're only a 5-year span. But let's transition from that story before ending 6th grade. And keep in mind, at this time, like anytime you had a friend or you had like a girl that was a friend, a lot of us, we didn't have cell phones like in 6th grade. So what you would have to do is, pick up your house phone. In school, you would tell your friends like, hey, I'm gonna be home at 6. Make sure you call me at 6:30. So when you call me, my mom doesn't pick up or my dad doesn't pick up, and I can pick up and we'll talk for like however long we can. At this time, this girl, I don't want to blast her name, but let's just say that her name was an expensive luxury car. Take a guess. It's crazy because they say moms know best, and I remember my mom knew the girl's like parents, and when she found out, this was like the first time my mom was like, no, you shouldn't, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm a kid, like this is my first crush. For my birthday, like we started talking. This one time she had called me and I was listening to this is embarrassing. I was listening to the radio, listening to Ja Rule featuring Ashanti and R. Kelly. I think it was wonderful. I gotta make this long story short. So that happened. We started talking. I got on the phone. Like there would be times that she'd call me earlier. My mom would pick up. She's like, "Who is this?" I had to tell her, and she kind of found out. And then after my birthday was like Valentine's Day, and I remember I had like saved my little money, and I had taken some money that I got for my birthday, and I went and I got her like this teddy bear, like whatever, some cute little kid shit, and I had gifted it to her. But I remember that day she had like 2 bears, and I was like, what the heck? And I was like, oh, whatever, I played it off and stuff. And she was one of the girls that would like stay after school and hang out. I was the opposite. Like my mom was like, yo, you get out at 3, you better be home by 3:30. Like she was home waiting for. So I was never one of the kids who like would hang out after school. And looking back on it, my mom was right. Come to find out, before the year ended, one of my friends, who I thought was a friend, it's crazy because this is how I found out that I needed glasses. We were in this class and this kid was like in the front row, and I was like I would always sit in the back row. When the teacher would put things to read on the board, I was like, oh, this looks far. Come to find out that I actually needed glasses. This story's going all over the place. But I was in that same class. She was in there and my friend was in there. I remember one time I was looking her way and she thought I wasn't looking, and she was telling my friend across the room like to call her, or like he was throwing hearts. I don't know what the heck was going on. But come to find out, people started telling me that like she was talking to this kid, and I like had to confront this kid after school at his locker. I was like, yo bro, like what's going on? He was like, what do you mean? Like this is my girl. I'm like, what do you mean she's my girl? Literally we just started arguing about this girl. The fact that she had played me and my friend but like I think my friend knew and he just didn't care. But I was like, yo, what the heck? I'm not trying to share like a girl that I like. Like that ain't me. Thanks to that girl, I was just like, yo, you can't trust these girls. It was just a little roller coaster of a ride back then of emotions. During that summer, I was trying to do everything and anything to convince my parents that, hey, I'm about to be a 7th grader. Every other kid has a phone, and I think it's time for me to get a phone. So this was during the times that the Razor came out. And I remember my sister had gotten it, and I was so jealous. I was like, what? Why did she get it? But mind you, she was working and she can afford it. My parents that year had gifted me for Christmas my first cell phone, and I'll never forget. It was this Virgin Mobile like flip phone, right? $25 reload card. I activated my phone. Now I could call my friends, and it was like after 9 o'clock you could call any phone from any other service and you wouldn't use your minutes. Looking back, it's so crazy. Like counting minutes, I would have to do like *314 to get like a text message that would say how many text messages I had left and how many minutes I had left. Now we get to one of my favorite years of elementary school, and that was 8th grade. Back then, before you went into the next year, once you found out if you passed or not, they would give you, a paper with your name and like an agenda book, and it would say like, okay, you're ready for next school year. This is your teacher and this is your schedule. I was so excited because I had this teacher named Miss Cuddy, and she was like one of like the oldest teachers, reputation in the school. Like if you were in her class, like she would only pick like the top of the top to be in her homeroom. And I remember I made it to her list. It was a thing as an 8th grader. Whoever was the first in line, we were on the 3rd floor. 8th graders would come down first. Miss Cuddy, her class, we would be the first ones down. She would walk in the middle. The boys would be on one line, the girls would be in the other line. You couldn't tell me anything during that time. 8th grade, one of the first events was like graduation pictures, and then you had to pick your high school, and you had like these school dances. Actually, now that I say that, I do remember that before you got into 8th grade, you had to pass the Constitution test. And this was one of my earliest achievements, and I still remember to this day. I was one out of 3 other kids. Me, the guy who was not born in the U.S. And I think the fact that I helped my dad to get his citizenship, and it was kind of like the same questions. Little did I know, like back in 6th grade, when I became a citizen, me helping and asking my dad those questions was going to help me in 7th grade pass the Constitution, not just with a passing grade, but like 100%. We cut back to 8th grade. I have to pick a high school, and then I get a chance to take the exams for like these selective schools, like Whitney Young, Walter Payton, but I didn't get accepted to any of them. 8th grade, towards the end, was just a blur. After the luncheon, after graduation. But then when it came to picking a high school, it was either going to my neighborhood school, which was Steinmetz High School. And for those of you who don't know Chicago, Steinmetz, let's just say bottom of the barrel kind of school. So thankfully, thanks to one of my aunts, she told me to apply to this thing called a charter school. I applied and I got put on the waiting list, and like 2 weeks before school had started, I had already bought my like uniform for Steinmetz. Next thing I know, I get a call and they're like, hey, are you still interested in coming into the school? I was like, sure, anything is better than that. My neighborhood school was like 4 miles. The high school that I ended up going was like 8 miles. I would have to catch the bus at 6. It was a little intense in the mornings. I would have to take 2 CTA buses, but I did it for the majority of the 4 years there. I get into this high school, which is Northtown Academy, and once again, I felt like I did in 1st grade. A lot of the kids did the orientation and they knew each other. I go into high school. I'm there for a couple months. That was the end of 2008. And then January 21st, 2009, I turned 15 years old.